Hey, hello everyone. Right, I'm just going to check this is here. Hi everyone. I'm here with Helen Hill. I've got to move the right way. Who is an e-learning consultant and designer, and who I've known for a little while. Who runs her own business and has been running her own business for the last couple of years. And as I've kind of shown at the bottom there, she's here to talk about what the events that encouraged her to take the leap from full-time role into her own employment. And there may be a bit of clue in the title that there may have been kind of some challenges around that. So welcome, Helen. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to meet you.
So I'm just going to say the other thing that I wanted to suggest is we're welcoming comments and questions as we go along. Please stick them in the comments. If you want us to know your name, because we can't actually see your name because we're going through StreamYard, you'll find a link in the comments of this, or in the text of this, so you can click on that and it will allow StreamYard access to your name. But if not, you'll just come through as a Facebook user, and that's fine too. And also those comments will take a bit of time to come through, so we might not respond to them straight away, but I'll be kind of monitoring and checking in and kind of bring them up as we go along. So with that said, I think we're going to get going. So welcome, Helen. The first thing I wanted to say was, well, just encourage us to tell us a bit about you and how you got into e-learning, and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as Emma mentioned, I'm a learning and content design consultant. So I've been self-employed for 2 years now. I celebrated my 2-year business birthday last week. Yes, it was a momentous occasion. Can't believe it's been 2 already. But I have had something of a squiggly career to get there. I think I define squiggly career. I originally trained in graphic design, worked as a graphic designer for a while, was lured into graphic design lecturing. From there, I went into developing e-learning in an academy secondary school and being a literacy coordinator, which was a bit of a weird combination because the two don't always go together. But from there, someone contacted me about a design job in an e-learning company, so it started to pull all the skills together. So I went to the e-learning company as a graphic designer, and then because of my teaching background, my love of literacy, we realised that I could actually write really well. I understood learning, understood how to structure it, and I actually became more of a instructional designer, doing the writing and the build side, although I do some of the graphics still as well. And that's what I've taken into my full-time self-employed business now. So happy days, finally found where I am.
So, and like you say, a bit a squiggly career, but it's amazing how it kind of makes sense, isn't it? You kind of look back and go, oh, well, if I hadn't done that and that, then it just wouldn't make you where you are. But at the time, it feels like, where am I going?
Oh, definitely. I felt very, very lost for a long time. I felt like I was going backwards, actually, with every job.
Yeah.
So when it started to come together while I worked in my last sort of full-time permanent role, it was really nice to see it come together. But then obviously what we're going to talk about, it just wasn't necessarily the right environment for me.
So come on then, tell us, so what were the events that led up to you kind of taking that leap into self-employment?
Well, it was very much the nature of the business, and the fact that it was a very toxic culture. So it was one of those companies where they kept promising me promotions and extra responsibilities that never delivered. They were very much, your face had to fit and you had to be a certain type. And because by this point I'd got a bit more confidence and would stand up for myself and things, that was not appreciated. And they wanted people that would very much be malleable into their style of management, basically. And I didn't fit that. And it started getting to the point where it was made clear that I wasn't going to be progressing as such, and other people that were less qualified, less experienced were getting these roles without even interviewing for them and things. And it was that kind of, the stress started to build. I got more frustrated and upset, didn't want to be there. And there was just so many little things that you could see it wasn't being made easy for me, put it that way. And I was working my backside off. I was working so hard. But I also have a few health issues, and I do have to take a lot of time off for appointments and things. And even though if I took 1 hour off, I would make 2 back. You're made to feel guilty about this. And I started getting threatened with disciplinary for absences and things like that, when actually, Disability Act covered all that. So yes, it was a very toxic, I'm just going to say toxic all the time, place to be. Yeah.
So one of the things I think you said to me was that idea of turning up authentically. Basically, they were saying, no, we turn up, we want you to be this way. Yeah. Don't turn up as yourself.
Oh, very much so. And it can be amazing sometimes how just little comments people make can really erode your confidence, and make clear, like, they chip away more and more at you being yourself and at you doing what you do. And just make you start to question yourself all the time. And to be honest, I thought I was going crazy by the time I left. And it was affecting my mental health hugely, and it does get to the point where you don't handle things as well, because you've got to that point of stress, frustration, upset, disappointment. But then that's put back on just you, with no acceptance that they've done anything wrong or would have built to this point. So yeah, it's a very hard environment to be in when you get to that point, I think.
So there's that, and then you pile on the fact that you're struggling with health issues and they're not being understanding at all. And yeah, it's just
yeah, I mean, when it gets to the point where a HR manager gets you in an office and tells you that she wants you to go and get a second opinion, when I'd already got 3 neurologists who all agreed the same thing, but she wanted me to pay privately to go and get proof that I had this illness, because she didn't believe it, because it's one of these invisible illnesses a lot of the time. That's where you really start to think, this isn't right. And it's not the place I should be, if someone's being like that.
So what was it that tipped you? It was that the point where you decided to go, right, I'm off, see you later?
Yeah, I think it got to the point where everything I said, it was incredible how it could be twisted back at you. To the point, so I stopped standing up for myself as well. And then, when you start getting occupational health people involved, and like I say, my health was just going downhill, because the more stressed I got, the more the pain increased. So I got more stressed, and I was getting in that cycle. And when people come out with comments like, well, if you're in pain, don't come to work. Well, that's not the way it works when you're in pain every day. I would never be in work.
Yeah.
It's like finding ways to manage it. And, just having a backrest isn't going to help that. There's other things that contribute to that. So, yeah, I think the final thing was that I was actually off sick, and I got a letter through that shouldn't have been sent to me actually while I was off work. They shouldn't have even been contacting me about anything remotely like what they'd done. And so I just thought, I've had enough. I'd been off that was my second stint off, I think, of like 3 or 4 weeks, because the doctor signed me off. And I just thought, I'm not having it. So I emailed my resignation in. They quickly rang me, said, seemed surprised. And yeah, that was that. I never went back, because I didn't work my notice in the end either. So I just went back to pick my stuff up. And to be honest, it's not the first toxic workplace I've worked. So I had previous experience of a very similar place, actually. I think it's maybe the industry, I don't know, but I seem to gravitate towards a certain place for some reason. But in between, I've had lovely places I've worked. So, it shows it's not everyone. Yeah. So yeah, that was the deciding thing, that I was off sick. I was really at my lowest, and there was a final kick in the teeth, and I just thought, no, I need to do something else. Yeah.
So, and was self-employment always the thing? Was that always the option, or did you think about looking for other roles as well? Or
no, I mean, that was the scary thing, that I left with nothing to go to. But it was just really funny timing. I've always had Unlikely Genius on the side for like 15 years since I left uni, doing little bits of graphic design work, but there wasn't enough value in it to make it a full-time job. So I never thought I could make it a full-time job. And people kept saying to me, why don't you work for yourself? And I just thought, oh, I like the stability of a wage and all those things that generally you think that put you off. And I wouldn't have a clue about the money and whatever. So, like I said, I've done bits on the side, but funnily enough, the day I handed my notice in, 2 days later, someone had contacted, oh no, it was just before, just after. No, it was 2 days after I'd handed my notice in that someone contacted me about a role. And I had a phone interview straight away and did like an hour's test, and I got the job. And it was a contract role, which I'd never even thought about doing. And it was just something that I thought, well, it'll give me that bit of time to just think about what I want to do, see if this is a viable option. And it was fantastic because, like I say, within 2 days of walking out of the job, I had a contract role to go to with I think it was a six-month contract originally, but it got extended and I did 10 in the end. And it was a good stepping stone because it was on site. So I was a contractor, but not from home like a lot of them are. I had to go to the site at HMRC. So it was a nice stepping stone because I was working for myself, but still in an environment with other people. And I made that step. Then my next contract was working from home, and I've never gone back to an office since.
But just kind of rolling back to that kind of, you handed your notice in with not really knowing what the hell's going to happen, and then it's like suddenly this opportunity pops up that kind of goes, oh, hello. And quite a lot of work I do with people, I work around the kind of getting clear on what you want and kind of understanding what you want, and then sometimes it is when we take the leap and we just let go of the stuff we're holding on to, that stuff just seems to appear, and stuff that you just never, like you say, you never would have thought of the idea of contracting in that way. And suddenly it's like, oh yeah, that's obvious. Oh, if I'd have, and it's kind of, I've spoken to a couple of people recently who've said exactly the same thing. They took that leap and then it was like, oh yeah, right, there is another option, there is another thing that's out there.
Yeah, and like I say, it was a good stepping stone for me because I left my previous job with such little confidence in myself. I was terrified the first day in that contract role. I was really, and the team I was in was so intimidating. They really knew their stuff. They were all really techie guys, but I also thrive in that kind of environment in a group of guys with a bit of banter, and it just helped me pick myself back up in a really nice way. And it gave me the confidence then to go out and get the roles that I'm doing now, where I'm working from home for e-learning agencies and, you know, companies that need to bring in outside resource because they don't have a learning team inside. And to go out and put my name forward for things and interview and
suddenly you see, and I think that's another thing, is the kind of, sometimes when you're in a role and you're in an environment and then you think, well, I've just got to put up with this is the way it is. But actually, once you get out of it, you're like, well, how did I think that was it? How on earth did I think that was the thing I had to cope with? And
oh yeah, I can't believe I got so far, to be honest. And the annoying thing was that I really loved working there when I first started, but due to restructures and, you know, certain team members and things like that, things do change, as they will in any business when you've got restructures and personnel changes and things. And like I say, it just got to the point where when I started it, I thought I fit in, and then it was very clear that I didn't, and I didn't. I think the culture of an organisation, you've got to fit in it, haven't you? It's got to be right for you, the values, the everything. Yeah, and it was not the place for me. But, you know, look where I am now, where, okay, I'm not in a company, I don't have to fit into someone else's values, but that's the lovely thing, that for the first time in my career, I feel I can be myself after being pushed down. Because even when I was in lecturing, you know, you have to be a certain way, and I am daft, and I am rabbit obsessed, and I am, you know, a big child that bounces around the house pretending to be a dinosaur and things like that, and that is not appreciated in a lot of places.
And isn't it a shame that it's not, because that's what makes kind of the work environment the more fun, and it's what generates ideas, and it gets people bonding together and stuff. And yet sometimes it's just, when it's looked down on, you just don't want to be there, do you?
And when you think in a creative agency that they would expect a little bit of bonkers or a little bit of imagination, but it's definitely not always appreciated.
So we'll come back to talk about the company. But first of all, did you ever challenge their behaviour? And so yeah, the people in the company, did you challenge their behaviour at all? And did you?
Yeah, I did certainly. When it first started to change the whole culture of the place, and I was still challenging them a bit at the end, but maybe not, like I said, partly not in the right way, because I was that stressed and upset. I'd let things boil up before I then dealt with it, and then I was too emotional to even explain why I was upset. And so I absolutely admit I didn't always deal with it the right way by the end, but I did always try and confront them about various things. But like I was saying earlier, it's amazing how things can be thrown back at you, and that was very much how I felt all the time, that I'd try and be honest, and they'd say, well, come to us and tell us about these things. But every time you did, it was then no, and your words were twisted and thrown back at you. And so you're saying X, and it was like, no, I'm not saying that at all. Stop putting words in my mouth. And that, I hate that. That is one of my absolute bugbear. So it did get to the point where, I stopped unless there was something huge. And I once got an apology out of someone for something. That was it. There's two people involved. One apologised, the other refused to, for something that really was misconduct on their part. But that's just, you don't expect them to, I think, a lot of the time, do you? But
well, you hope they might, but
but it's a really hard thing to do, especially when you're in that place as well, to actually, get someone to the side and say, look, I have an issue with this or that. And I think the thing that is really disappointing then is when there's no attempt to rectify it or acknowledge it. If people sometimes just said, oh, I understand why you're upset about this or something, at least you've got a little bit of validation.
Yeah.
And that's something that I always try to, when you're dealing with clients or something now, if they've got an issue, even if you don't understand it, try and at least say, okay, I understand you've got a problem, but can we work out why?
So it's that recognizing, okay, that emotion is valid based on wherever you're coming from. I can see that you're feeling emotional. I can see that there's something happening there. Let's figure out what that is and how we can do something about it, rather than saying, yeah, you're wrong. You shouldn't feel like that.
And the point I got to, which I've always been terrible at this anyway, was that if people were nice to me, it upset me, because like other team members that could see what was going on, and people would be really nice to you, and I'd just be like, oh, don't say anything over it, because you're so used to dealing with the crap in the end. It's really difficult if someone does actually say something nice then. But I still can't take a compliment anyway, so
the group will work on that at some point. Definitely. So tell us about the business now. So how are things? You've been in business 2 years. How's it going? How do you feel about it all?
Amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's the best thing I ever did, for sure. It's so much better for me, and my partner keeps saying that, it just really suits you. It suits you working for yourself, and it does, because I can, like I said, I can be myself. I can work on the projects I want. I can do all my mixture of things that I like, because I have quite a varied set of skills, and I can actually use them all, rather than just having to use one or two or be told what I'm going to use. So that's really nice, and I've got some really unusual projects because of it. And I really like building up the relationships with customers and stuff, which was something you were quite pulled back from before, because project managers would do it, and managers and things. And I've got some amazing customers, and we've built really nice relationships, where me and one of them have a wine o'clock call on a Friday now to catch up with what we need to do with a glass of wine at 4 o'clock on a Friday and things. And that is, and that's something that more people should do. Absolutely. And people say, you shouldn't be friends with your clients and things, but actually some of them have become friends, and the work's thriving because of it. You give more as well, I think, when you. And
I think that's a really interesting thing to unpick, because when people say you shouldn't be friends, okay, there's something about kind of building that relationship where you feel someone, and that's what friendships become. And so actually you can serve someone better by being a friend and turning up. It's again comes back to authenticity for me. Kind of you're trying to connect with someone, and so if you're kind of going, well, I can't be friends with you, then you can't turn up authentically, can you? It's
No.
kind of, you're wary of the relationship, and yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I was on a call with them the other week, and we'd been on for an hour, and then I just stayed on with this one sort of project manager I work with, and she just said to me, "Oh, I can tell you're not yourself," and I was just absolutely exhausted. I'd run my similar self into the ground, but she could tell because I'd dealt with her for a year, and we've got this really brilliant relationship. She was like, "Right, you're switching your computer off this weekend. Now this afternoon, and you're doing nothing," and it was really nice just for someone to go, you put your backside off, you know, take the time off. Nothing's that urgent that we can't wait till Monday. And you're not, you know, if you have
a client that's paying you money to tell you that, I'm going to do this now because I can. Right, there you go.
You do.
I think it's Neve, is it? I'm not sure, but yeah, wine o'clock, definitely.
Oh yeah, highly recommended. The only problem is if you start drinking at 4 on a Friday, by 7, I'm ready for bed. And the wine's gone.
And you've written up your meeting notes in a way that really doesn't work.
Oh yeah. I mean, to be fair, we only do about 10 minutes of that, and then we get distracted. But yeah, I can't even remember where the question started with that one. I've got off track. Oh yeah.
How are you doing? But also, so what have you learned? Let me ask you that. What's happened to you over this couple of years, and what have you learned?
Oh, so much stuff. I mean, I'm an absolute geek at heart. I'm an avid learner, which is why it's great I've ended up in the learning industry, to be honest. And so I've learned loads in the, you know, because when you go on your own, go solo, you have to pick up a lot of things like understanding the money side, the tax, and the project management, and you know, all these things that you've not had to deal with before. So I've learned lots in that way, in like practical skills. Although I have also outsourced a lot to other people so that I don't get in trouble with HMRC and whatever else. And I've learned to be myself, very much so. And I think I've just learned a lot about myself and how I suppose I'm not what it comes back to this thing of thinking that for years I have had to pretend to be someone else. So I've learned a lot about myself in that manner of who I am, what I enjoy, what my skills are, what projects I like working on. And the fact that I can do it, I can work for myself and it can be a success. I mean, you know, the company's thriving. I'm having to turn work down. So that's a great sign. I probably should turn more down, to be fair. But but I'm also learning things about my limits, and I don't always get it right. I do work too many hours a lot of the time. I do say yes to too much stuff, and I promise shorter deadlines than maybe I should at times. And then, you know, there's the whole pricing thing of not knocking your prices down because you're terrified of saying what you want to say or what you should say.
Yeah.
That's a huge skill in itself. So yeah, I don't know. It's just been lots of personal discovery, I think, and realizing that there is a way of working that is perfect for me. I mean, we never thought that I would be able to work from home because I used to get cabin fever just being at home for a weekend. I'd be crawling the walls. So when I said to Graham, I'm going to be working at home from this contract, it was like, oh right, okay, this is going to be interesting. And actually, totally changed my mindset to being at home.
And how does it work for you because clearly one of the reasons you took the leap is because of your health issues, so there's a bit of risk there, isn't there, that you haven't necessarily got the sick pay and things like that. How does that work for you?
Yeah, true. And it's not something I've had to worry about yet because, funnily enough, I mean, in that last year of working in a full-time job, I must have had about 6 weeks off sick in there, mostly with stress. But I did have a couple of really bad flare-ups of pain and things. But since I've gone solo, I've had 2 days off sick. That's it. In 2 years.
And I'm guessing that's because you felt okay, not because you've just been pushing through from the way you're saying that.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting how stress kind of inflames everything else. And so companies can learn a lot from that, can't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the 2 days off I had, it was just literally, I had such a bad chest infection, and I did push through. I had to push myself to go down to London to do a presentation when I had no voice. So I literally had to try and shout through no voice for an hour. And I actually got a standing ovation at the end of it for persevering and trying with sign language. And so I was definitely too ill to go that day, but I did have to push through just for that one thing. And then, you know, the team were like, just look, you're not coming in the rest of the week. Like, no.
Yeah.
But I've not needed time off, and I've took very little holiday, so it's not like I've rested there. You know, I've had so much energy because I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Basically, I've got to the point where I'm now trying to make sure I book some better time off in. I had this year until pandemic hit, obviously.
Yep.
Holiday was cancelled, so I just thought, beggar it, I might as well just carry on working. But I will be taking some off this month. Yeah, so it does worry me a little bit, just in case, because it is a long-term chronic illness I have. But saying that, I know I'm very lucky, especially now I'm managing better, that when I get ill, I'm not as ill as a lot of people are with it. I tend to, I just get told it's a mildish version, and I'm managing it well. So I'm hoping it will never get worse than it is now. So if that's the case, that's fantastic. Obviously, you know, I need to put bits of money aside to just in case.
And I guess the other thing is learning about how to manage yourself so that you're not overcommitted, so that you have ways of kind of stepping back if you need to step back, and that side of things.
Yeah. I think I have learned this year, because I did take way too much on at one point, and I had to say to one contract, I was in like a cool off period, and I just had to say I can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the project they'd said ended up being a lot more than what they'd initially scoped as. So, you know, they understood why as well. And I wasn't the only one that dropped it, actually. But, you know, it was a wise decision at that point to just say, you know what, I'm going to make myself really ill, and it's going to affect all my other work as well. Yeah. So sometimes you do have to make that balance of, because I do work on multiple customers at once, is this going to affect all the other 3 or 4 that I've built an amazing relationship with? And if it is, it's not worth it. Yeah. Makes you kind of think more carefully about what you're doing as well, doesn't it? So I was just going to ask you one more question, but if anyone who's watching has any questions they want to kind of feed through, anything that's come out as a result of listening to Helen, then stick them in the comments and I'll pick them up and follow up with that. But the last thing I was going to ask you was just, what one piece of advice would you give to anyone who's working in the toxic environment? To be honest, get out. They're not going to change, and no matter how much you tell yourself it will get better, they will change. They will realise they're not going to. So I know it's very difficult in the current work climate because there's not a lot of jobs around and things. But if you can at least start to make a plan of how you might go somewhere that will value you and that will treat you like a human being and that will understand your challenges if you have got sort of health issues or things like I have. There are people out there that will treat you really nicely. There are lovely teams. And yeah, I think that was my big learning that I told myself for a good couple of years. Things will change, things will get better. And you know, I know now it's still not changed. So and I think from what you've said as well, be open to the fact that it might not be in an obvious way. It might not be another job. There might be other opportunities out there that don't fit, that don't fit the norm, sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, very much in my career, I don't think I've ever really had a specific plan of exactly where I wanted to be. And I've very much taken opportunities as they've arisen and as people have contacted me on, you know, recruiters and things. But I've constantly found these new, like I say, I've gone quite winding. I found these new things that I've all really liked, and they have come together eventually. So even if I have worked, oh God, I've tried a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit, there will be a job out there that will combine those skills in some way. And yeah, it might take time for you to find it, but you know, start making steps to see how you can get there, because like I say, sadly, once a place is toxic, I think it's there to stay a lot of the time. Yeah. As a therapist said to me, what was it, something about it'll take it'll take more than an ocean to turn that ship around or something. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, actually, because he was saying like once companies have got in a certain direction so far, it's not gonna.
And I guess there are examples where kind of new leaders come in, or a leader has a shift, and that does start to, but it does take time, and it takes time to feed down all the way to the environment. And I've never worked so much in a toxic environment, but I've been in places where the leadership's bad, and you're trying to kind of make a difference to your team, and that's a challenge as well, because you're kind of fighting back from above. Yeah. No, you can't do this. So yeah, it is a challenge, isn't it? A question from Becky. Do you know Becky? Do you think being in a toxic workplace has had any long-term effects on you?
Oh gosh, interesting. You know, in a way, it's almost good effects that I'm trying to focus on now, which I think there's always going to be that element in the back of my head of a confidence issue. And I've obviously been trying really hard to get past that. But even like doing this tonight, I'm like, oh my God, what if someone sees it on, you know, and you still have that niggling little thing in the back of your head. But I've very much, I think, at least for the last year, really focused on the fact that this has now put me into a career I love, with a business that's thriving, and 2 fingers up at, you know, organisations. And it's actually catapulted me in a way that I don't think me or them would have ever imagined. So it's actually a good long-term effect, I think, for me. So it certainly outweighs the
had a long-term effect, but it's been a positive one overall. It's pushed you to take that leap. Yeah,
and it takes a while for you to get there, but yeah, I think definitely now that's how I feel about it most of the time, anyway.
And I've also got a question from I think it's Neve, but I'm not sure. How have you carried your experiences into your current work? And so it's a similar question, but have you brought out any important lessons from that experience?
I think there's definitely lessons in me being assertive for myself and standing up for myself and learning how to do that in a really good way. But to be honest, I've not had to massively do that working for myself. And there's just been learnings about, definitely like I said, the increase in picking myself back up and realizing that I'm good at what I do. A lot of that was an impact from there, but I've had to also learn to sell myself, haven't I? And, you know, nobody else is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
But also in a nice way, you get all the feedback personally, which, you know, someone else isn't taking credit, or it's, you know, and it's at least coming to me rather than just stopping at someone else. In fact, that doesn't answer that question. That's still answering Becky's. But yeah, carrying on. I mean, I still work in the same industry, so I'm carrying experiences on in that way. And the one thing that job did do for me was really combine my graphics and my writing and my build skills. So I wouldn't be where I am now without having done that job. So that is a big experience I have definitely carried forward. And, you know, I did learn some stuff from dealing with customers, particularly with, you know, people that are late with amends or with sending content to you or it being half done. And I did learn lots of things about, you know, making sure that the content is complete when people are sending it to you. Not, we'll send you this bit now and then this bit then, and because that always makes a nightmare of a project. By that principle anyway. So there are things I learned in that role for sure that I've brought through. And I learned a lot in that first contract role as well. So, in fact, so much stuff there. It was a totally different environment. They worked in the agile process, which I thought I'd worked in before. And it was only when I then worked in it, I was like, oh no, this was nothing like what I did before. I learned a whole new discipline of content design. I developed my writing skills. So there's loads of stuff that I think from each job I've just passed on that now I'm applying to everything, really.
Yeah. And so the final thing I want to ask actually is tell us about, because we haven't really talked about what you sell and what you do. So I just thought I'd give you a quick opportunity to talk about what it is that you do there and if there's anything that you think would be interesting to people.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I have my big projects that I work on for the sort of corporate clients and things, but what I've been doing in my magical free time, which doesn't seem to exist, is I've really found a bit of a love of helping smaller businesses, particularly in this current climate of trying to move them online with, maybe they have face-to-face training and they need to move it online because they can't do face-to-face anymore. So I've been helping a few smaller businesses with that. And I have set up a few things that, people can sign up to or hire me for if they wish. So one is that I have actually created a course to help people move their training online. So if you can't necessarily afford to hire someone like me to do it for you, it's to help you do it yourself. So that's called Take Your Training Online, and that's on my website, unlikely-genius.com.
And after this in the comments, if you want to check it out. Yeah.
And I do have things like a power hour where you can hire me if you just want to pick my brains or say, like, I'm developing a course, I'm absolutely stuck with X, Y, and Z. Help me get past it, or just here's some content, please tell me what you think. I can do an hour's review. So yeah, I can do things like that. What else have I got? Oh, I've just set up a new
Facebook group.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I've got as well. And Helen shares some brilliant kind of little nuggets in this Facebook group, just about thinking about how you're presenting yourself online, how people might be learning from it and stuff like that. So I'll share a link to that as well. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was going to say, actually, because there's quite a few off the back of me talking to the games industry last week, quite a large number of people from the games industry have joined, and I think there's quite an interesting link there between games and using games as learning tools. And I'm wondering whether that's a really interesting power hour or something that someone who was in the games industry that was thinking about e-learning could maybe have a chat with you or something like that. But that's just bubbling up for me there.
Yeah, and vice versa. I can probably learn off some of you guys, because I've done bits of gamification and it's something I just want to do more and more, and a lot of people just don't have the budget for it, and I'm always proposing it, so always happy to have a chat about things anyway, just as a
link with Helen if you'd like to talk further with that one.
Yeah.
So last thing, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? I did promise some bunny stuff.
Oh no, we didn't mention them.
I haven't mentioned bunnies at all.
I'll post a picture below. I have two absolutely adorable, very fluffy bunnies, who are my life, my babies. I love anything fluffy anyway. And
inspire content.
Yeah. And they have also kept my mental health in check, I think, having them around at home while I'm working here. So yeah, I'll put a picture up just because they're fab, and they're called Tiffin and Strudel. They're my assistants.
So yeah, thank you so much for this. It's been fantastic to have you in here, and I know we've had a few watchers, but I know quite a few people have also said they're going to watch it offline as well. So yeah, it's been great having you on. We will be doing another masterclass or stories to inspire. I haven't quite worked it out, in 2 weeks' time. So if you're enjoying this, then please do kind of come back and check that out. And if you've got any suggestions or ideas of things that you'd like to hear about as well, then please do drop it in the comments below. The other thing I should have said is, if anything's come out, questions that have come out from this, Helen is in the group, so she will be able to see anything. So if you're watching this on replay, then please do ask the questions, and we'll be checking back in, and I'll make sure she sees them. So thank you very much, Helen. It's been brilliant having you here, and thank you everyone that's been watching, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.